Good morning, guys. Happy Saturday morning. Yeah, a little late this morning. It was Mrs. P's birthday yesterday. I think I put that up there yesterday. So we had party for her yesterday. Friends over, things like that. Barbecued, sat at campfire. Those normal things you do. So it was a good time. But I got people inside sleeping, and so I decided I'd come out on the porch this morning and get up. But I didn't get out of bed till 6 o'clock. I figured, hey, you know what? I'm entitled to sleep in too. So, but that was a good time. Mrs. P had a fun birthday, so we were happy. So, what we did yesterday and this weekend kind of comes into play. Uh, Now, those of you who live in East Tennessee are probably familiar with this, but I will enlighten the rest of you on it. There is a state forest here in Sharps Chapel. It's enormous. Okay, I don't know how many acres, but it's thousands of acres. Okay, called Chuck Swan, and it is basically a state forest managed by the Department of Agriculture, State Department of Agriculture. The Forestry Service is in there. Pay attention to it. But what's really interesting about it, and this was a topic of conversation quite often yesterday, because a bunch of us went and did this, uh, is there are, I think it's 52 cemeteries out in Chuck Swan. And I know you're going, what the hell are you talking about? Why is this important? Bear with me. So we were going through, cruising on down these trails and stuff like that, and stop at the cemetery and look. And we'd see people that were, died in the early 1800s. And you stop and think, that's 200 years ago, okay? Looking at headstones of people that were, we were talking about one. The guy was born in, was it 1789? So, and died in 1840 something. You think about that. He was born 13 years after the country was founded, okay? He lived through the War of 1812. He lived through the Cherokee War, and he died just as we were going into the Civil War. You know, I mean, you go back and look at some of the history in wherever you are. I was telling a story about me living in Dover, New Hampshire years back, and the apartment, which, up there it's old houses that they chop up into apartments, I was living in was right across the street from a cemetery. And right as I drive out the driveway, there was this tombstone of this person that was born in the 1600s and died in the 1700s. Okay. And you think about that and you go, this person died 300 years ago. Now, the United States is by far not one of the oldest countries. We don't have history like Egypt does, or Europe does, or China does. You can't go back in the United States and look at buildings that were made 1,000 years ago or something like that, or the pyramids. Okay, we don't have history like that, but we have a history. And here it is. It's Memorial Day weekend, and you look at everything that's going on in the teeny tiny history we have compared to the rest of the world. All right. Granted, countries have come and gone throughout the course of history. The Ottoman Empire doesn't exist. The Austro-Hungarian Empire doesn't exist. You know, pick a country that Zimbabwe used to be Rhodesia. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them like that. All right. But the United States, for the last 200 and roughly 50 years, has been an entity. And you go back on Memorial Day and you start to think about all those guys and women who died in the Revolutionary War, in the War of 1812, in the Spanish American War, in the Cherokee War, in the Civil War, World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, pick one. Okay, we've been at war many times in this country, and there's a bunch that I didn't mention right there. Okay, But all the men and women that died on foreign soil a lot of times to protect the way of life that we have in the United States, to protect our freedoms, to allow you to no taxation without representation, to say whatever you damn well please. Okay? So we can have that American dream. And now what you have is a bunch of people who are trying to destroy all that we have gone to other countries to fight for. You hear, every politician, we need to spread democracy around the world, right? You know, which is a complete crock to me anyway. But isn't it amazing how politicians want to spread democracy around the world while destroying it in the United States? Millions upon millions of people have died to protect our way of life. And this is what we're celebrating this weekend. Okay, this is what we're supposed to remember. All those that came before us, that sacrificed their life, that signed that check, okay, and got it cashed so that you could say what you want, be what you want, do what you want. A lot of you probably will tell me you have family members. Most of us can say we do, that have family members that fought and or died in one of these wars. Or worse yet, can say we're victims, i.e. something like the Holocaust or whatever it is, because I can certainly say that as well, of these wars. And we had to go in to stop the insanity. How are we going to stop this insanity? Because there is another war going on. Not a Cold War, not anything like this, but there is a war going on, an ideological war going on in the United States right now, where you have an entire political party hell-bent on dishonoring what 250 years worth of men and women gave up their lives to protect. That's just sad. There's a lot of us that believe in the founding principles of the United States. There's a lot of people that don't. We don't know who's going to come out on top at the end when this battle rages on to a point of getting bloody, because we all know what's going there. But that's what we prep for. We prep so that the memory of those 250 years worth of soldiers is not forgotten. That we want to carry on the way of life that we have had, that we are strong, that we are independent, that we will do whatever it takes to make it through. You look at the pioneers, you look at the original settlers, okay, and they were strong people. Yeah, a boatload of them died, okay, that couldn't make it. But the ones that fought through the weather, the wildlife, the wars, those are your ancestors. The strong will survive. Back then it was true. Now it's true. Guess who's on the strong side? If you work hard at it, if you train, if you prep, if you think, if you prepare, you will be the strong that survives. And 250 years from now, when they're celebrating Memorial Day, who knows what war they'll be celebrating? Who knows who they will be honoring? But I'll tell you this, if it comes to a war in the United States, I'm going to be on the right side, fighting for what the true meaning of America is, and not for some dystopian shithole that the progressive side of the liberal wing wants. On Memorial Day, just here we have this weekend. Enjoy yourself. Take some time out, have that barbecue, go fishing, go play on the lake, go play frisbee, go to a parade, go watch the kids' ball games, whatever it would be. But do take a minute or two to stop and remember what we're actually celebrating today, this weekend. That was Monday. What we're celebrating, what we're remembering. And because of those guys, you're here. Pinball out.